Hey friends, welcome back to this episode of Facilitation Fridays. I haven't done one of these in a while, but I have been thinking about some topics. So I've got one for you today, and this has to do with people who not only facilitate different kinds of events, which is mostly what this series is about, but also if you're a performer, or if you're a speaker, or if you're a teacher, or you lead any kind of process, I think this can come in handy. So here's what I recommended in my book, Together in Rhythm. And that is to keep in mind what I call the 1-5-15 rule. 1-5-15. So just remember, 1 and 5 is 15. It's actually 6, but 1 plus 5 is 15. So 1-5-15, what is that? I find this helpful when I'm presenting because staying on time, keeping track and holding that mental map or it's kind of a mental physical feeling of how much time has gone by, how much time you have left, so you can make the transitions you need to make, and so you can start to closing and close and finish up a session or an event or a class or whatever it is you're doing on time. Because running out of time is not good. Abruptly having to say, oh, okay, sorry, we're out of time. Not professional, not cool. And you don't want to leave an event like that. So this is to help you, like I said, no matter what you do, to have your pacing and have your flow a little bit, nicer. So here's what it is. The 1 stands for the next minute, 1 minute into the future, which is basically saying what's happening right now. So when you're working with people, you want to be aware of what is happening, of course, in the moment. That means I'm spending time looking around. I'm not thinking too much. I'm not planning too much. I need to be present. So the 1 is about being present in the moment. Observing. We need to be an observer a lot of the time. I think a lot of facilitators actually don't spend that much time observing. They might spend the majority of their time, leading things or thinking about what they're going to do next, which is planning, which both of those things, you're not observing, you're not taking in information. So it's really important when you're working with a group to be looking at body language, looking at affect or facial expressions, listening to the sound of the music, what's happening with the group as a whole, but also what's going on with individuals, because every group is individuals, right? There's no such thing as really the group, even though we talk about the group, but the group is a bunch of individuals. And the way to check in and make sure you're paying attention is to be present and just do it, right? Stop doing and start taking in information. So the 1 stands for really what's happening right now, being present, listening, looking, feeling, and evaluating, what's happening. All right. The 5, of course, is 5 minutes into the future, which means what's the next thing? What's the next thing, or where do I think this is going to be in 5 minutes? Does it feel like, okay, I'm just going to leave things alone based on my observation and my assessment? I'm just going to let this thing ride because it's good if everything's cool, right? Or what's the next thing coming up? Because do I need a transition? Is it something I need to create a transition for? And if I can start thinking about that, I might have something, appropriate. It'll help me form some ideas, give myself a little time. So 5 minutes, is just kind of the next thing, right? Pretty self-explanatory. But I would say you want to, so you're going back and forth between the 1, the now, thinking, and then, okay, now take a little time and think, what's the next thing coming up? Do I need a transition? Do I want to make a change? Do I want to let everything ride? Just keep it the same, all right? And then the 15 is really, your bigger chunks of time. And I like to keep that in mind, especially for closing. 15 minutes is, the time between the beginning of your event and maybe you get into the main kind of whatever you're doing. You're done with explanations, you're done with introductions, you're done with hello and how are you, and let's see who's here. And you're done with that, identifying what's happening, who's doing what, and you're kind of doing your thing. The last 15 minutes is going to be a time where you need to think about how you're going to transition into a close, how you're going to wind things down, if you have verbal processing to do, if you're going to debrief at all. Then, and I'm assuming this is like a 1 hour thing or a 90-minute event, but however much time you have, 15 minutes is not that much time. It can go by pretty quick, so you want to be aware of those 15-minute blocks, because that's the amount of time that's the difference between getting caught off guard because you ran out of time and not. That's the difference between closing with a nice feeling, like there was enough time, we did what we needed to do, everybody had time to say something at the end if that's the style you're using, or we had time to bring it to a close and have maybe a moment of after the music, before we have to start leaving and people come in the room and there's a huge changeover. So I hope that makes sense, right? And to me, the closing of a session, and it doesn't matter if it's at a corporate event, it doesn't matter if it's at a retreat center, it doesn't matter if it's a class, a music education group, a music therapy group, whatever it is. And if it's for 2 people or 20 people or 200 people, the closing, the last part of whatever I do is important to me. It's super important, because that's where you get a lot of the value out of the experience, because everything you've been doing, that's kind of where you process it and you have the time to integrate it and to feel it, to feel the benefits, and to maybe set the stage and the intention for how your individuals are then going to go out, back into their lives or back into their day, and also get the benefit from that experience. So I think the last part of any session is really important. So that's why I'm recommending that you really be aware of the 15 minutes out, because at some point you're going to be 15 minutes away from the end of your time. So if, whenever you get to the last, let's say 30, then you need to be thinking, okay, in 15 minutes, we need to be starting to close. We need to be doing whatever it is, right? So you're giving yourself those big blocks, keeping in mind those big blocks, staying aware of the 15-minute chunks so that you're professional and so you can deliver the kind of quality experience that your participants deserve, because they deserve the best. And that's what we want to give our participants. So again, it's just, numbers. You could call it something else. I just call it the 1-5-15 rule or 1-5-15 guide. And I use that in my work, whether it's a 1 hour music therapy session or it's a 90-minute music education a class, or it's a all-day, retreat or whatever it is. I mean, everything I'm doing, I'm sort of keeping those numbers, keeping those points of orientation to the overall process in my mind, all right, and body and spirit. All right, so I hope this is helpful. If you'd like to add anything, any advice or additional comments are always welcome. I really appreciate a lot of the comments that fans of the channel leave here, and I feel like we really have created a community of like-minded people, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you, just leaving some good advice, and a lot of you do that. So thank you for doing that. All right, that's it. That's what I have for you in this session. My time is up. It's time to go. All right. Thanks for watching. Click the thumbs up if you like this kind of content, and leave your kind comments below. I'll see you all in a future video. Thanks for watching.